Welcome to the Houston Valley Scottish Rite Podcast. The Houston Valley Scottish Rite building is just a stone's throw away from NRG Stadium where the Houston Texans play. And of course, with the golden microphone, I'm your host, Brother Jason Reese, 32nd degree, KCCH, and member of the Houston Valley Scottish. We have another special episode for you all. I am up in Arkansas, in Little Rock, Arkansas, at the Grand Lodge Building and Scottish Rite Temple in the Orient of Arkansas with illustrious James C. Graham, second Grand Equerry and SGIG of Arkansas, and past Grand Master in 2008 of the great state of Arkansas. Welcome, Brother Graham. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Jason. I am doing great. Welcome to Arkansas and welcome to our temple. We're glad you're here.
Yes, sir. It was a great drive, a little wet. We got hit with some rain, and you have a beautiful building. What I've seen so far, and we're going to take a little more of a tour. Just a beautiful building. To all our listeners, if you're in Little Rock, you need to stop by the Grand Lodge and the Scottish Rite Temple. It's in the same building here in Little Rock. It's a fantastic. What year was this built?
The building was started in 1921 and then it was completed and dedicated in 1924. So last year we celebrated the 100th anniversary
Oh,
of
wow.
the dedication of this building. We're very blessed by the brethren 100 years ago who built this and all the brethren since then who have passed it down to us. And it's an enormous gift and blessing from them. And we're very proud of it. It is a beautiful edifice like a lot of our Masonic edifices.
Yes, sir. From the 19 columns outside to the marble entryway to the stained glass windows and the beautiful portraits and paintings of Pike and other Frederick the Great. I was looking at out there. Just artwork was everywhere. It's just everything's beautiful. Truly a treasure to have in the state of Arkansas. And I'm definitely proud to be here. It's great to stand in a building such forefathers built for us.
Well, and we love when brethren and their families come and visit, and so absolutely, if you are through Little Rock, we would love to show you through our building.
Yes, sir. So let's get into it. So you were born in Chicago, Illinois, moved to Arkansas as a child, Eagle Scout, graduate at the University of Arkansas, and a MD from the University of Arkansas College of Medicine, professor of Department of Pediatrics, University of Arkansas College of Medicine, and was appointed to the Governor's Trauma Advisory Council. Correct me if I'm wrong, your current position is Executive Associate Dean?
That's right.
So, what made you want to get into the medical field? What inspired you?
Well, that's an interesting thing. Sometime along the path, I think in junior high school, I honestly don't know why, but I began saying I wanted to be a doctor. And I mean, like every kid, you have a sore throat and your mom takes you to the doctor, but it wasn't like I'd had some serious illness. Sometimes physicians have had some substantial experience as a patient and that has inspired them to study medicine. That really wasn't the case for me. And so, but I kept going through it. But it was really when I was in college and I began pre-medical studies and I did some shadowing in one of the local emergency departments that I realized that I like the study of science and all of that. And it's a way to use that knowledge to try to help others. And so it was really in college when I said, okay, this is the right path. And looking back now, sadly, sadly, I this is the this year would be the 40th anniversary of my graduation from medical school.
Well,
So,
congratulations.
so just went to the 40th anniversary alumni reunion.
Oh, wow.
The time has passed quickly, but honestly, looking back, it's been a great choice and a great path.
And why pediatrics?
Well, that's a good question as well. If you had asked me when I started medical school, do you want to be a family doctor? Do you want to be a surgeon? I would have probably said I wanted to be an emergency physician, because I had done some shadowing, as I said, done some substantial amount of volunteering in a local emergency department here. You really don't know until you really get into the middle of medical school. And in the third year of medical school, you rotate through the major specialties of medicine. And that's where you really get to see what it is like to be a surgeon, what it is like to be a psychiatrist, et cetera. And when I rotated on pediatrics, I mean, it was not on my radar at all, but I just loved it. I loved taking care of the kids and their families, their parents. Sometimes friends or others will say, "Oh, I could never take care of sick children. That must be." And I'm like, "Oh no, it is absolutely gratifying. The most gratifying thing you can imagine. You got a kid who's fallen off the slide on the playground, has got a broken arm, they come, they're hurting, they're crying. Well, you give them some pain medicine, you put the splint on their arm, and they leave smiling.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any better than that.
I can imagine. Yeah, I can see that. I see where people would get that wrong, making somebody happy and feel safe and making the parents feel safe. It's giving that reassurance.
It's an incredibly gratifying. I mean, are there sad times? Well, of course there are. That's the other thing, the big difference between taking care of kids and taking care of adults. A couple of parts about that. One is that most of the time the kids get well. Now, again, occasionally they don't, but most of the time they get well. We old adults, we may not get well, and we fuss a lot about it, you know. And
We're the babies, not
I
the
mean,
babies.
as I've gotten older, my right knee arthritis just keeps hurting, and so I'm fussing about that to my doctor. Like I said, it's been a good path for.
So, something else about you, which, so my three sons are Eagle Scouts as well, such as yourself. You're an Eagle Scout. How much did scouting have in your life, and are you active in scouting in any way today?
Yeah, great question. My experience through the scouting program was, I would say, instrumental in who I am today. The moral teachings and so forth were clearly influential in developing me as an adult. Yeah, I have remained active in scouting. Many years ago, I was active with a local troop as an assistant scoutmaster, but over time, as as my career got busier, I didn't have time there, and so I've been able to serve on committees and help raise funds for the scouts and so forth over time. I must note the connection between the scouting program and Freemasonry, and honestly, my path to the Masonic Lodge is paved by my path in Boy Scouts. So the brother who signed my petition in 1994 is someone I'd met in scouting and had worked with in scouting. I mean, we had become good friends as both as adult volunteers in scouting. I knew him and his wife. They are still dear friends of mine, and I knew he'd gotten active in this Masonic Lodge thing, and I didn't know anything about it. So I mean, I still remember we would occasionally get together and have lunch. He worked here downtown, only about 3 blocks here from the temple, and so we would get together for lunch sometimes on a weekday. And I remember well, we had walked over to Main Street. And we were just having lunch, and I asked him. I was like, "Dick, you're getting all active in this Masonic Lodge thing. What is that about?" And so I asked that question, and I mean, I still didn't petition for probably another year and a half. At that particular time, my father was ill with cancer, and I was spending time helping take care of him. But it was that friendship, it was that connection that I developed in scouting, and so much of the morality of scouting are teachings in the Masonic fraternity. And so I mean it really resonated with me. So yeah, scouting has been an important part of my life and of my development, and frankly is was instrumental in my joining the Masonic Lodge. I remember that when I went for my entered apprentice degree, there were some guys there that I didn't know were Masons, but I knew in scouting, right? And I was like, oh, wow, look, there's Bill Jones. I knew him in scouting. I'd worked with him in scouting. Had no idea that he was a member of the Masonic Lodge. There was a guy named Curtis Barker who, I mean, even when I was a kid, Mr. Barker was very active in the Order of the Arrow and other stuff. And I mean, I looked up to him so much as a kid, and here he is at my entered apprentice degree. I mean, yeah, it's been instrumental for me and exemplified, at least in one way, in my path into Freeman.
So going from that, getting your petition from a fellow brother within the Scouts, let's talk about your Masonic journey. Let's go back in time a little bit before you. Do you have any Masonic lineage before your time?
Well, yes, some that I learned about after I had petitioned the lodge. My father was not a Mason, but two of his brothers were Masons, and my grandfather on my mother's side. The story is that he took his entered apprentice degree, but never went any further. I have some extended family on that side who were active Freemasons, but I mean that's another funny part of my path into the lodge is I knew that I had these two uncles that were Freemasons. At the time I petitioned, one of them had already passed away, but the other one had not, Uncle Vernon. And so after I had petitioned, my friend Dick Browning, who signed my petition, he was the scouting friend.
Yes.
And I told him, he asked, do you have any family members? And I said, well, I know that one of my uncles is a Mason. He said, well, you got to tell him that you're joining the lodge. So I called up Uncle Vernon and said, and we chatted, and I said, listen, I have decided that I'm going to join the Masonic Lodge. Well, he was, I didn't understand it really at that time, but he was, of course, very excited about it. And it was so funny because when I said, I've decided to join the local Masonic Lodge, he was like, hey, that is just great. That's just wonderful. But I can't tell you anything about it. It's secret. And because he had joined 30 or 40 years ago, and at that time, that's really and he was active as a young man. He had not been active recently, but he had been taught that, like, oh, you can't talk about it. You can't even say anything about it. And of course, that's not true.
True. Yes.
And I said, well, Uncle Vernon, I'm not calling to ask you anything about it, but I just wanted you to know. I said, my friend who signed my petition said that I had to call you and let you know. And he said, oh, absolutely. When they schedule your entered apprentice degree, you let me know when it's going to happen. And then he said, oh, but it's been a long time since I've sat in a lodge. I hope I can get in.
Oh no.
And of course, again, at that point, I didn't understand how any of this worked. And so I went back and told Dick, I said, okay, I talked to Uncle Vernon. He said he wants to come, but I don't understand this. He said he might not be able to get in. And Dick was like, oh, no, 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 don't worry. We'll take, has he paid his dues? Does he have a dues card? I say, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. He just hasn't been in a lodge in 20 years. And Dick was like, you tell him not to worry about it. Bring his dues card. And so my uncle was there for my degrees. And so that's been really a wonderful thing. And my Uncle Vernon is still alive. I think he's 90 years old now. And he is a life member of his lodge. Again, and he joined after I became active in the Scottish Rite. Vernon joined the Scottish Rite here and is a 32nd degree Mason. But he's still not, he doesn't he's moved as he's retired with his wife. He lives an hour and a half from where his lodge is located. So he doesn't attend lodge frequently, But about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I lose track. He was eligible for his 50-year pin from the Grand Lodge. Our Grand Lodge gives a special pin for 50-year members, and so the lodge notified Vernon that, hey, this is your 50th anniversary as a Mason, and on this evening we're going to present 50-year pins. And so I was able to go with Vernon. In fact, I drove up there with him, and we went to Cersei Lodge number 49, and I was able to be there with him as he got
Nice.
his 50-year pin. So that was really a special moment for me.
Especially with family, it's almost like completing a circle within the family, a
Absolutely.
tradition. How proud he was to have you, and then also you being past Grand Master. I bet that brother Vernon, Uncle Vernon, I couldn't imagine being more proud of you. Like, hey,
Well, you, you probably have figured this out already. I'm bad about telling stories. So if I start telling too
no,
many
no, go
stories,
ahead,
you
go
just
ahead.
no. The other memory I have about that is right. Yeah, I was honored to serve as Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Arkansas in 2008. When I was installed, I mean, obviously, our Grand Lodge session, like I think most or all Grand Lodges, our business session is tiled. But our installation of Grand Lodge officers in our Grand Lodge is always open. So wives, family, others are welcome to come. And so, of course, I'm going to be in, you never know for sure when you're Deputy Grand Master, there's an election, but you anticipate that you will be elected Grand Master and installed. And so, of course, I invited Vernon and Aunt Mary. Well, Vernon, at that point, my parents had passed away, but Vernon came, but he invited another one of my uncles, one of Vernon's brothers, Frank, my uncle Frank. He said, "You need to come down. James is getting this important office in the Masons." And so Uncle Frank came with Vernon. Now, Frank's not a Mason, never has been, but he came to this open installation of officers. And I remember Frank told me and Vernon, he's like, "Wow, I've never seen anything like that." That not only just the grandeur of the building, but we Masons kind of like our pomp and circumstance,
We
right?
do, we do.
And a Grand Lodge installation ceremony, there's plenty of pomp and circumstance.
Pomp serves that and a little bit of mystique. I always like it. It's
Absolutely.
great. It's great.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So before we get into your grandmaster, I'd like to, in your professional resume, you've done lots of research. What accomplishment in your professional career, up to date in the medical field, that you're most proud of, and how expected to pan out in the future? Like meaning its impact in the medical field.
That's a hard question, right? Because I look back with fondness on some of the kids that I took care of. I mean, I still remember some of the kids that I um, had the pleasure to take care of who were seriously ill and got better, and that's just incredibly gratifying. And so it's hard not to uh, say one of those things. In my current job, my current role is that essentially I run the MD degree program at our College of Medicine, and so we have 700 medical students, and so I get the opportunity there to influence them, and they're gonna graduate with the MD degree, and they're gonna go out and practice for 30 or 40 years, and so they if we do our job well at the medical school, then it will have a long-term impact. So it's hard to pick, but I think if I have to choose one most important, I would say it is the work that I was involved with several years ago in establishing a trauma system for Arkansas. At the time, we did not have a trauma system. And so it was a 5, 6, 7 year effort to put together an organized trauma system. Arkansas is, uh, in many ways, like Texas, a mostly rural state.
Yes, sir.
And there are many areas of Arkansas where there may be a small, rural hospital who play an incredibly important role for the citizens of that area. But if you're in a serious car accident and you have, an area bleeding on your brain, or you have some very serious abdominal injury where you need a neurosurgeon or a trauma surgeon, then getting you to the trauma center hospital, to a larger hospital that has the specialists, the nurses, the personnel who can take care of that in the shortest amount of time possible saves lives. And so we were able to get state funding and to create this system. And subsequently we've been able to show that the system is truly saving lives. That we've had a 30% reduction in preventable mortality.
Wow.
So that I like I said, if I have to pick something, I think it's that, because it sort of affects everyone throughout the state, and hopefully will have a long-term impact.
What a great impact. I like to always the symbol of dropping a pebble in a lake, in a body of water, the ripples from teaching medical where you're sending out these trained medical professionals that will alter lives and save lives and prevent things from happening, bad things, and the better well-being and health of the world, in essence, because they'll train others beyond behind them. And then, like you said, for the rural areas, of just saving lives, and that's how important that is. As a Mason, Eagle Scout, we're out there doing good work. It's good for Masons to see that there are Masons, and like you said, a lot of times we don't know who are Masons. We happen to see guys, every once in a while that are Masons, but we don't really get to see the hard work, the good that we're doing, and just how important. That's just that's really touching. It really is. It's good to see. So moving into now, you're a raised a Master Mason. Moving into the year 2008, just maybe a year or so, a couple years before that, was there a time where you said, I'd like to try and be Grand Master, or was there a peer, a Masonic brother who's like, hey, you'd make a good Grand Master? What got to that point?
Well, I'm not sure anyone ever said you'd be a grandmaster. I'm not so sure about that. But no, the path that led there. Yeah, again, I mean, you're right. It's like all of our lives. There's this path and this thread and this string. Dick Browning, my scouting friend, who I told you we had lunch and talked about it, and then later I asked him for a petition. He was the top line signer on my Blue Lodge petition. He's been the top line signer on all my pendant body petitions over the years. Dick was Grand Master of our Grand Lodge in 2000. So, and obviously we're tight friends, and he appointed me Grand Orator. Grand Orator. I don't know that anyone's ever said you'd be a good Grand Master. I have had a number of brethren who say you're loud. So
You check that box on the on the resume of
yeah,
Grand Master. Yeah, you got that one
yeah,
nailed.
I'm loud, and so he appointed me as Grand Orator, which was probably suited my skill set, and so I had the opportunity to serve as a Grand Lodge officer and meet the brethren who were in the line and all that sort of thing, and so then that starts making you think, well, someday this might be the right thing.
Might be the right fit.
Yeah.
All right. So you were elected Grand Master in 2008. Two questions always I like to ask past Grand Officers. What was your biggest accomplishment that you accomplished during your year that you're most proud of? You look back and say, man, I really like that I accomplished that. Or me and the Grand Lodge of Arkansas. And then what's the thing if we could go back to the past and go, you know what? I wish I could redo this and make this happen. What do you say?
Yeah. So, thing I think I'm the most proud of is that during my year in office, uh, the charitable program that I had sponsored was raising money for our children's hospital, actually for the trauma and injury program of the children's hospital where I work. In that year we raised about $115,000, which is just incredible. At the Grand Lodge session, when I was going out, but the Grand Lodge session that I presided over, in the public part of it, we were able to present a check to the head of the children's hospital. And so that's a very fond memory, and not to say it's not. You say what is your greatest accomplishment? Of course, that yeah, fine, I was the leader of it, but it was the brethren who supported it and worked hard and had fish fries and fundraisers and all the work that went into that. But as a Grand Lodge, as a fraternity, we were able to make that contribution. So that, I think, is the thing I'd be the most proud of. What would I do differently? What could I, um, maybe phrased a different way? What do I wish went better, or a regret that I might have had? Well, one of the things I wanted to do as Grandmaster is that we have men who learn about our fraternity. They petition our lodge. They come to the inner door of the preparation room. They knock. They take the entered apprentice degree, and then they go no further. I told you that my mother's father, my grandfather, was an entered apprentice. He never went any further. And I knew that the statistics at that time, I've not looked more recently, but I suspect they're the same. 50% of the men in our Grand Lodge who took the entered apprentice degree never went any further. And at least in my view, that's on us.
Yes.
Right? That's on us. That's not on them. That's on us. It's because we didn't do the right job of fostering and mentoring and being a brother to that man. I get it that some take the enterprise degree and then they realize I didn't really know what I was getting into and this is not right for me. But I think the majority of them, if we do a good job of mentoring them and involving them, they would go on in their path. I had put together a mentoring program, a formal mentoring program, and honestly, there are still a few lodges who use it. I mean, I think it's helpful, but it didn't have the broad impact that I had hoped it would have. So that, I would try to figure out a way to do that differently and better.
Yeah, I guess as the world progresses into the future, technology, and recognizing first the what new Masons, young Masons, and I mean young Masons meaning age and time in the service of Masonry, they're wanting something, and we need to figure that out. That's crucial. Either education, fraternity, fellowship. We've got to find those out. We've got to move fast. You've got to recognize that. And like you said, mentoring is crucial. Recognizing what that brother maybe likes, hunting, perhaps he likes cigar smoking, anything, whatever it is, and trying to, I guess, put him in touch with the right brothers who have the same commonalities in the fraternity is crucial. And like you said, it's all of our jobs because they don't know they're coming in and
Right. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times when I've sat in an entered apprentice degree, and at the end of the degree, that some brothers will say, I'm happy to lecture you, if you want. This is some guy that I only met an hour ago. I don't know him. I don't know his phone number. I'm new. I just went through this strange degree experience. What are the odds that I'm just going to figure out how to call him so I can get a lecture? And I mean, my experience when I joined was different. When I joined, again, my friend Dick Browning, obviously was there, and Dick is what was then still is an excellent ritualist. He has lectured many brethren through their degrees, Dick told me that night. He said, James, I'm not going to lecture you because we're good buddies. I can lecture you, but here's this brother, Harry Holloman. Harry was a past master of our lodge. He was there that evening, and he said, James, let me introduce you. This is Harry Holloman, and he's a past master of our lodge, and he is a great lecturer, and I want Harry to lecture you. And I mean, it was fantastic because, and Harry told me, Harry said, listen, I'm retired, and so I have lots of time. You're a busy doctor, so I'll lecture you early in the morning. I'll come to your office at the hospital. We can lecture in the evenings on the weekends. Here's my cell phone number. He said the only thing I will not let you interfere with is my golf game. But we set right then and there. We set the first lecturing appointment. He said, "What time do you have next week?" And I said, well, how about next Tuesday at 5 o'clock after I get off work? And he said, well, I can come to the hospital. I said, no, I can come to your house. So, I mean, it was that connection, right? And of course, as you as you might expect, Harry became a very, very close friend and brother. He lectured me through all three of my degrees. He conferred my master's degree. His wife, Rosetta, because I did not all the lecturing, but most of the lecturing at their house. And so Rosetta was there, and she was very active in the Eastern Star, and she knew how this worked. So Harry and I would, yeah, we had to come in and say hello to Rosetta and whatever, and she sometimes would fix us cookies or coffee or something. But then we would go out in the yard to lecture, or we would go in another part of the house and lecture. But anyway, I got to know Rosetta as well, and it's just that kind of relationship and mentoring is just key. And honestly, I think young men are looking for that. I think that's right.
I think I agree. I once had a younger brother, a good friend of mine, and brother, say, uh, Jason, we should be in each other's lives. He says, I should know what's going on in your life. I should know, what your hobbies are, or even more so, what difficulties you're having in life. We should talk to each other. You should know he likes to. He's starting to work out. He's getting older and metabolism slow down. He's getting a tummy, and I said, well, I wish I was as thin as you. Um, he's much thinner, and he goes, I started working out. But and it was very when he said it, he wasn't trying to make a big point, but it really was a big point. We should be in each other's lives. And what you said about the new candidates, and that goes for not just, I know we're talking on a Scottish Rite podcast, but York Rite, Shrine, anything, Blue Lodge.
It's true in all of our
It
lives.
yes. Don't just, when a brother comes in to your fraternity, goes to reunion, uh, don't just ignore them. Don't go sit with your brothers when a reunion is going on. Go sit with the candidates.
Exactly.
Ask about their lives, inquire about them, because they are the future leaders.
Absolutely.
I like the beehive as a symbolism. Bees, they're all important, but none of them are important. If one goes down, the hive continues, but they're all working for a common good, and at least that's how I get out of the beehive. And so, taking care of one another, looking after your fellow brother, and mentoring. We all need mentoring, no matter how old or young you are. It's good to have a good mentor. It really is.
Absolutely.
And that kind of goes to a medical question for you. And so I've been trying to start talking about mental health and men's health, men's mental health, physical health. Because let's just face it, men, we don't take care of ourselves. Let's just be honest. We don't. We're tough. We're immortal. We're gods. Hercules. We don't get sick. And then also mental health. I think that's a big thing where a lot of guys want to be tough, and this is why I think mentoring is also quite important in men's mental health. So tell us, uh, when it comes to men's health, physical and mental, what are some things to better take care of ourselves?
That's a great question. I will preface in the same way that I always preface when a brother asks me a medical question, because brethren do, and it's fine. I mean, right? That's just
Yes, sir.
part. That's just part of being a physician. family do, friends do, Brother Masons do. And so I always preface by saying, you understand I'm a baby doctor.
Yes.
I'm a pediatrician, so I'm pretty good at taking care of diaper rash. But now, so no, obviously I'm only joking.
Of course, of course.
No, I think that taking care of yourself in many ways, again, the Masonic teachings, it's about bettering yourself, and I think we often think of that in a moral way. That we're going to live and act by a set of moral guidelines, codes, and so forth. Improving yourself also obviously involves your physical health. I think that the the biggest advice I would give brethren is the importance of preventive care. In other words, it really is, I think, important and helpful to have primary care physician, to have that. Everyone talks about the annual checkup or the annual physical exam. It's less really about the physical exam. I mean, yes, when I go for my annual checkup, yeah, the doctor listens to my heart, but I'm not having any heart problems, or he's probably not going to hear anything unusual there. But the time he spends with me saying, "Have you had your annual flu shot?" or James, your blood pressure is a little high. Maybe we need to start you on some blood pressure medicine. Let's check your cholesterol. All of that preventive care really makes a difference over time. And so I think maybe the most valuable advice I would give my friends and brothers, and I sometimes have to remind myself, is that preventive care is so important. I do have to occasionally give that advice to myself, right?
Yes.
The current recommendations are that when you turn 50, you should have a screening colonoscopy. And oh, brothers, I don't know how many of you have had one of those screening colonoscopies, but I've now had two of them. I might have been a little older than 50 when I had my first one, right? Because we men, we also procrastinate,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes,
I
sir.
mean,
Guilty as
that's
charged.
just part of what we are. Go and do that. It's important. I mean, I remember, two very dear brothers who died of colon cancer. It's a terrible disease, and it can be prevented with screening colonoscopy. And I was a little late about taking my shingle shot. When that's the fun of growing old, right? There's all these medical milestones you go through
Yeah.
that at age, I think it's 60, you need to go and get this shingle shot. And I kept telling myself, oh, I need to go do that. Oh, I need to go do that. But finally I went and did it. So I think that's maybe the most important advice I would give.
Yeah, and so I'll be 47. I'm almost there. I go to the VA.
Oh, screening colonoscopy is in your near future.
Well, and and it's I was told that by a brother, Butch Giles, where he's kind of my mentor, and he's like, "Well, you need to get it." So I go to the VA. I said, "Well, Doc, let's do this thing." And he goes, "Well, how old are you?" I said, well, "I'm 47." "Oh no, we got a few years." I was like,
Yeah,
"Well, I want to get this over with." What I've heard is it's not none too pleasant. Oh no, you'll just have to wait. So, brothers, yes, that's good advice. It is preventable. When you hit the age of 50, and if you haven't had when you're over the age of 50, get to the doctor now. You can save your own life. Um, think of your family. Think of your fellow brother. Think of the fraternity. We need you.
it is not nearly as bad
It's all that.
as any one of us make it out to be,
We're
right?
a bunch of babies,
I'm, I'm fussing about it, but I mean, the prep that you have to get to drink all this stuff, and the prep the day before is the hardest part. The procedure itself is just, I mean, they give you some sleepy medicine and you sleep through it. I mean, so the procedure itself is not
And it's better than the alternative.
much
The
much better.
procedure is a lot more pleasant than the alternative.
Absolutely.
And we want everybody to be healthy. And So I know the Houston Scottish Rite last year we had a men's health day where we did vaccinations. We had some physicians. Many of our members are physicians, and so they were there, and so it was neat. And I think, like you said, a lot of us we procrastinate. Oh, I'll get to it next, few months, and then you forget it about a few months. And
Yeah, and the good news is that many wives are good at pushing us along in that regard.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. So moving on here. So you are the Sovereign Grand Inspector General of Arkansas. You were appointed deputy by then Grand Commander Ronald Seal in 2013. Let's talk about that real quick. Was there and as somebody who doesn't know, and a lot of brothers out there, listeners don't know, is there an interview process? Did you have to sit down with the Grand Commander? How does that you just get a phone call one day and say, "You're on a list"?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting story. I mean, I'll tell you what my experience was and how Brother Seal did it. I think Brother Cole uses a similar process, but obviously different Grand Commanders might do this differently. But my experience was, yeah, it was just a phone call. I was sitting in my office at the hospital one day in like October of 2012, and the phone rang, and I answered the phone, "Hello," and on the other end, uh, there this voice says, "Brother Graham, this is Gene Sizemore. I'm the Grand Executive Director of the Supreme Council in Washington. Do you have a minute to visit?" Well, I knew who Gene Sizemore was, Admiral
Admiral
Sizemore,
Sizemore, yes,
right?
sir.
I mean, I knew who he was, and I had, seen him at things and shaking his hand, very respect, incredible respect. And I'm like, why is he calling me?
Why is an admiral calling me?
Exactly. And I said, well, yeah, I have time. He said, well, calling at the request of Grand Commander Seal. And he said, you may know this, but the current SGIG of Arkansas, Dwayne Treat, turns 80 this year. And so he will be retiring from the Supreme Council. And the Grand Commander would like to know if you would have any interest in serving. So we had a 10 or 15-minute chat about it, and I said, I was very gratified to be asked or to be considered. And he said, okay, well, I'll let the Grand Commander know, and we'll be back in touch. And so a few days later, the Admiral called again and said, Grand Commander Seal would like you to come to Washington and visit with us. And so, yeah, there was an interview. And so we made arrangements, and it was in, I think, late October, maybe early November. We picked, a day that worked in his schedule and my schedule. And I flew to Washington, D.C., and I spent basically a day and a half at the House of the Temple, spent probably half a day talking with Grand Commander Seal and Admiral Sizemore just about the fraternity and the direction and all that sort of thing. And at the end of that, he said, "Well, if you're willing to do it, I'm going to appoint you as deputy for Arkansas." And I said, "Well, okay." And so, um, so that's how it happened.
How humbling.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
oh, that's the truth.
talk about humbling. Like, oh
Oh,
wow.
oh yeah. No, that's exactly right. It was an unexpected phone call.
So you're deputy, and so when was the when were you actually awarded the SGIG where you were the purple hat?
That's a bit of an interesting story as well. As I said, my predecessor, Dwayne Treat, he came off the Supreme Council because he was turning 80. The statutes say that you must at the age of 80. There were also a couple of other SGIGs at that time who were also turning 80. And so Grand Commander Seal had talked with Brother Treat, and Brother Treat said, "Listen, yeah, I go out at the end of the year, December 31st, 2012 is my last day according to the statute." He said, "But like, can I resign a month early and then you could put Graham in and he would have seniority over?" And so And so that's what Brother Treat did. Um, he was he was quite the politician, and so I was appointed deputy in November of 2012. And then the Supreme Council elects deputies to become SGIGs at the biennial session. So in August of 2013, I went to the session as a deputy and was honored to have been elected by the Supreme Council in their executive session to become an SGIG. So I went to Washington as a deputy and I came back with a purple hat.
Nice. That makes the trip home a little bit more fun, doesn't it?
Well,
A little bit.
or intimidating one. I'm not sure which, but
Yeah, the
yeah.
responsibilities start
Yeah.
raining down. Well, that kind of leads me to another question. I've always wanted to ask this. So I know you have your professional life. In the average day of an SGIG, when it comes to responsibilities within the Orient, what is your average day? Come to work.
Well, I think that the best days, I'm not sure that they're average, but the best days, the best times are the fraternal relationships. So going to a Valley Stated meeting or going to a reunion. One of our valleys, Fayetteville, has a reunion this Saturday, and so my plan is early Saturday. The alarm will go off early Saturday morning because it's about a 3-hour drive, and I'll drive up to Fayetteville. I'll attend the reunion, and have the opportunity, to fellowship with all the brethren there. And then, sometimes they wrote me into doing a part, which is good and fun.
Yes, sir.
And then driving home. The other parts though, just of being a leader, whether you're a valley leader or whether you are the SGIG for an Orient, are all of the business matters that are associated with our fraternity. So taking care of the building and building the budget and all of the financial concerns and issues. We have employees, and so all of those issues. So those things sort of go along with the job, and so that's a part of the average time that you spend in an office like this. But the best parts are the fraternal.
So, brothers, yeah, if you've listened to other episodes of the podcast, I've interviewed past grandmasters, past current grand commander, and different bodies. So the one thing that it's important to point out what Brother Graham was talking about, it's not just fraternal things; it's business things. It's you're running a corporation in a sense. The Orient of Arkansas, or when you were Grand Master of Arkansas, it's not just a lot of brothers. I think sometimes maybe think, oh, you're just the worshipful master over Arkansas. And that's not necessarily the case. You're actually running a business. You're responsible for a lot more than just opening and closing of a reunion or a valley, or having subordinates underneath you do that. There's a lot more to that, and I think sometimes we forget that your duties aren't just ritualistic or Masonic or shaking hands, kissing babies, kind of thing. There's a lot more serious stuff behind the scenes that I think grandmasters, sovereign grand, even valley reps that people just don't see.
Absolutely.
And so this kind of I'm using as a segue into my next question. When voting on the Grand Lodge level, we have a lot of great masons out there. There's a lot of good masons. We have masons who work in the kitchens, masons who do ritual, masons who set up the lodges, clean the lodges, do the cooking. That and myself as well. I'm a plumber, and sometimes I've done plumbing for lodges. That wouldn't make me qualified to be a grandmaster. Do I think I'd make a good grandmaster? I don't know. I think I'm a good leader, but does that make me qualified to run a corporation? I don't know. And so, with that being said, and this goes to a question to you, since you've been and then past grandmaster and now SGIG, what's some things the brothers out there throughout United States when you voting for the Grand Line at their Grand Lodge? What would you look for? in that position?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. I think I certainly have seen in my experience, in the lodge, in the Scottish Rite, in the Grand Lodge, and in all of our bodies. Sometimes some of the things we value, like being a good ritualist, or attending lodge frequently and so forth, are wonderful and are important. But you really do need someone who has experience or skill in running an organization. My belief has always been that everyone has their own gifts and talents, and that there is a place for everyone. But finding the right place, the right fit, the right job is so key. I remember a deer. I'm sorry, Jason.
No, no, go, no, go
I'm
ahead, go
bad
ahead.
about telling
No, no,
stories.
tell a story. No,
So
go ahead.
so I mean, I remember a dear brother in my lodge several years ago who again joined our lodge because of his tie in scouting. And this guy was worked his entire career for one of the major construction companies here in Arkansas. He was a construction manager. And I'm telling you, if you were building a building or renovating a building or needing something done in the building, there was no one better than Randall Hall. I mean, he was a whiz at all of that. But he had a hard time joining the lodge and learning his lecture. And I mean, it was just hard for him. Now, I would be hard pressed to find a more dedicated Freemason than Randall was. He passed away a few years ago, but I mean, he came to lodge. He was dedicated to it. He didn't want to go through the line,
Yes, sir.
and it wasn't the right fit for him. Right? He did take the office of Tyler. In fact, he liked being Tyler, right? Because he didn't have to learn any ritual. It gave him a role in the opening and closing the lodge, but he didn't have to memorize all this stuff. And so again, everyone has their gifts and talents, and you got to find the right place. Back to your question. So I think as we're voting for future leaders, you do need to think about, does this person have the right skill set to be our leader, to be our ultimate leader, and try to judge as best you can on that basis rather than just some other things that would not necessarily qualify. Again, that person's role may be not being Grand Master, but in some other way to contribute to the fraternity.
Yes, sir. It's I once heard there's a movie called Lincoln. Daniel Day-Lewis, not what's his name, who played Lincoln, not Daniel Day-Lewis. I can't remember his name. Anyways, he was talking about a compass, and a compass will steer you north, south, east, and west, but it won't tell you about the swamps, the mountains, the hurdles. So, and going to your point, it just popped in my head. You can have a good, like you said, a brother who's great at ritual. Well, he knows, well, this is how you open and close a lodge. But somebody who maybe has a more professional experience in something can tell you the pitfalls. Hey, we need our insurance. We need to do upkeep of the building. Employee matters. A lot of I know some lodges out, not lodges. I've heard some grand lodges, some big organizations within masonry don't use QuickBooks. Now, I own my own business, and you couldn't find a more bigger trap for a business to get in a lot of trouble financially and through the IRS not using QuickBooks. And some brothers don't know that because they've never ran a business or never had to do anything like that. And that doesn't make them less than. It's I'm a plumber. I'm not an electrician.
Right.
Some wires don't need to be touched.
Yeah.
And I found that out the hard way.
100% agree.
Yes, sir. And I think a lot of brothers. So when you're out there, I know Masonic years sometimes coming in, especially now we got installations and elections coming up. Look to that. Look. Don't just look for the compass. Look for a brother who knows the pitfalls, knows the traps, where not to step.
Right.
and
Right.
a great and communication, a great communicator who can get the point across and lead. I'd rather have somebody who can't memorize anything, who can lead us into the next generation, than somebody who knows every word but doesn't know how to read a bank balance sheet. But we're all good brothers, like you said. We all replace. So let's see here. My winding down. I want to go back to your first day. Like you said, you went there as a deputy to DC. Never been. So a lot of you don't know. They're in the executive session. The Supreme Council has 33 members. 32 because the Sovereign Grand Commander takes up one of the chairs. So it's 32. As a deputy, you do not participate in the executive session. So only 32 other brothers get to go into the room for the executive session. And I believe, I can't remember exactly how many Orients there are off the top, man. I forgot. There's a lot. There's a lot more than,
There are more.
yeah,
Yeah,
more than
I don't
32.
remember the exact number. It's 37,
Yeah,
38. So
37.
there are always deputies, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
There's always deputies. So you've never been in the room. And so your title, your office is Second Grand Equerry. So go into that, explain that. You're going into the Grand Executive Session or going to executive session. Tell me what that feels like. Walk me through it.
Well, when I was first elected in 2013, I mean, if you've taken a tour of the House of the Temple, you can go in the executive chamber. It is a beautiful room, like so much of that building. As you said, there are 33 seats in that room. There are only 33 seats, and but I'd never sat in there during a business session, during the executive session. Honestly, really, it wasn't because I was elected in the executive session in 2013. I wasn't in the room, obviously, when that occurred. So it was really at the 2015 session is the first time I actually went into the executive session. And, like all new things, it's like, oh, I'm not exactly sure how this works. And, where are you supposed to sit? It's obvious that the big, huge purple chair in the east is probably not this new member's seat, right? That's probably the Grand Commander's seat. And all those other chairs up there are for officers, but there are two lines of chairs on the sides. And I mean, I didn't know. Do they sit in some kind of order? Or fortunately, the members of the Supreme Council in 2015 just are just like the brothers in your lodge. They're good brothers, so as we go in and we're milling around before we open, just like attending a lodge meeting, brothers will say, now listen, um, you know, all of us who are not officers, you sit anywhere you want. You just pick a seat on the side. And I had friends and mentors on the Supreme Council. Brother Bill Mollaire, from Louisiana, had been a long time dear friend, and he sort of took me under his wing and said, come over here and sit beside me, Graham. Come over here and sit beside me. So, that's helpful. But, also, your first time in there, I was kind of quiet. I was like, I need to see the lay of the land here and understand. Now, uh, some of the brethren in the Spring County, I've already noted previously that I'm well known to be loud. And so that quietness didn't last for very long. Um, but, and you mentioned that I currently hold the office of second equerry. We were chatting a few minutes before we started. What is an equerry and where did that come from? My understanding is that the office of equerry, if you were thinking of a medieval era court, a royal court, the equerries were those who were in charge of the horses, equestrian. And so because our offices and so forth are sort of based on that, we have first and second grand equerry. I am pleased to report that in my time as second equerry, I've not yet had to take care of any horses.
And we haven't lost any horses either.
And we haven't lost any horses. Yes, we have faithfully cared for all of the horses of the Supreme Council very successfully.
And I've heard that. I heard that at the biennial this year, they're going to give a special award. No horses have been lost or hurt or damaged in this year.
Oh, yes, I have to be careful, or they'll give us some grief over.
Oh yeah.
Why aren't you outside taking care of the horses?
One day, they might ride up with a horse, and we're all in trouble. Like, oh Lord,
we are definitely in trouble if I have to take care of the horses.
All right, we're not on the last two questions. As I travel lodges and I talk to brothers about the Scottish Rite, the one question that always pops up, always, 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 I either get, well, I'm a Blue Lodge Mason. Why should I join the Scottish Rite? Or I'm more to York Rite. I'm Shrine. I'm Eastern Star. Whatever the case may be. So when you're asked, why should I join the Scottish Rite? What do you tell them?
I believe, and it's can be trite. We've all heard it, right? That well, the Scottish Rite is the University of Freemasonry, or you can find additional light, additional knowledge. All of that, though, is really true. And I mean, I think that's sort of what I say is that if you going through the lodge degrees and if participating in your Blue Lodge, if you have found meaning there, if you have found friendship and fellowship there, then you will find additional knowledge, friendship, mentorship, and so forth in the Scottish Rite. And I'm a member of the York Rite and the Grotto and all many Masonic appendant bodies. So I think it really is about additional knowledge, additional friendship and fellowship. One of the great things, of course, about the appendant bodies is that you meet brothers from lodges all over. That's one of the aspects of it that is a little different than just visiting your lodge or even occasionally visiting another lodge in your area. When we have a reunion, we have brethren who come from all over.
Yes.
And so you really do get to make acquaintance and friendship and brotherly ties with those that you might not have gotten to have a relationship with.
And
before.
most brothers never heard the phrase reunion. A reunion is where the Scottish Rite confers its degrees. And so a common misconception, and it's the big difference between York Rite and Blue Lodge, the reunion is not for the candidates. It is for, like Brother Graham said, for all of the members to come together throughout the state. And we all come together. Some of us never get to see each other but once or twice a year, and we spend 2 or 3 days. Some reunions are 3 weekends, some are Fridays, if you Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and so you spend that weekend with these brothers that you only see once or twice a year, and that friendship, you're all working together, eating together, fellowshipping, and the candidates, we're there just to provide the best experience we can for the candidates, and it's all about the reunion. That's why we call it a reunion. So everybody coming back together. It's really a fantastic experience if you haven't
Exactly,
experienced
right, and again, it's not that it takes away from your Blue Lodge, but it is an additional experience that you wouldn't have had in your.
So you're still a fairly young man. I know you probably don't. Yeah, I know what we talked about knee arthritis and knees, but you're still fair. You're not even close. You're nowhere close to the age of 80 of retirement. So, but many years into the future, you retire from SGIG. Well, what's a Masonic job that you're like, you know what? This is all right by me. This is what I would love to do in Blue Lodge or York or whatever the case may be. What is your ideal job when you're like, no more responsibilities, or this is what I'd like to do?
Wow, that's a wonderful question and one I had not thought of. Yeah, unfortunately, yes, I did get my Medicare card this year.
Uh oh.
Yeah, turned 65. What would I like to do? I don't think that it's a job or a title or an office for me, at least. I really think that it is. I am very honored and very grateful for service in this office and the offices I have been in the fraternity. But again, it sounds trite, but it's just true. Uh, In this office, part of the office, folks are respectful. Sometimes people are even afraid to come and talk to me. I'm like, don't be afraid to come and talk to Lord. I mean, to be honest, really, just being able to sit on the sideline and not be the guy in charge and just being one of the brothers, I think that's the best part.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that sounds crazy maybe, but that's what I'd like to do. I mean, fine, or go in the kitchen and wash dishes with the brethren who are doing that. That's, I think, what I would long for.
In Texas, we have a past grandmaster who is a small lodge in Texas, and he's the senior steward. And he's one of my favorite. He was the first grandmaster that I met. I was just elected as secretary of my lodge, and we had to open up a representation of the Grand Lodge of Texas. Well, everybody in the room was past master, but they ran out of past masters. And of course, I guess at the time I didn't realize you had to be a past master to sit in a representation. And they had no more past masters. And he looked at me, Jason, are you a past master? No, sir. He goes, well, you are right now. You're going to be secretary. And so it was such a simple, but anyway, he's a very kind hearted, I thought that was just such a good experience. And so he's senior steward. And it was like, I looked at that and you go to the lodge, you can visit him. He is like most, like you said, approachable. Just come talk to me. And it's nice to, I'm sure after of hard work to sit back and relax and almost enjoy the benefits of your labors of all your friendships and you've worked with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Lathan, do you have any other parting words of wisdom?
Just to say thank you.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure having the opportunity to chat with you, and for all those who are listening, thank you for spending a little time with us. I hope that if you're a Freemason and you're not a Scottish Rite Mason, I hope that you will consider joining your local Scottish Rite Valley. You will find, I think, friends and brothers there, and deep and meaningful experiences. So
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for hosting us here and coming and seeing this beautiful building. And to all my listeners out there, remember you're important to Masonry. Find your journey, find what you're doing, and do it well. If cooking in the lodge is your deal, then do it. Learn what the symbolisms mean behind the degrees. Memorization is only half. Learn it, apply it to your life, apply it to your brothers, and fellowship with one another. Till we meet again, brothers, no telling where I might end up or what state or where. You all be safe and God bless.